Take what you have learned here at Notre Dame and let it enable you to go forth and do good. Always be generous with your time, your talent, and all you have in your family life, your professional life, your spiritual life, every day of your life. Never forget that your charge as Notre Dame graduates is to be a force for good in the world.
Graduates from one of the world's elite universities hearing a powerful message from their president. Build community the Notre Dame way. Father John Jenkins has a deep appreciation for community and Notre Dame. He grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, the third oldest among Harry and Helen Jenkins' 12 children. He earned 2 degrees from Notre Dame, was ordained a priest on campus, and now serves as the university's 17th president. Get to know Father John Jenkins in this week's episode of the Business and Beyond podcast. Hello and welcome to the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC. I'm Gary Deck. Father John Jenkins' mom describes her son as special and a deep thinker. In high school, he was an accomplished swimmer and soccer player, was crowned prom king his senior year, worked in the stockyards to make extra money during Christmas breaks. Since becoming Notre Dame's 17th president in 2005, the university has increased its endowment, expanded its student body, and the school's picturesque campus has seen hundreds of millions of dollars in building projects. But there is much more to the story, including an increasing statewide outreach and much more to the man, Father John Jenkins, who joins us on the Business and Beyond podcast. And Father Jenkins, great to have you join us this week.
Wonderful to be with you, Jerry. Yeah, and welcome to your audience.
Yeah. How are things on campus? These obviously have been challenging times for all segments of the economy and life in general around the globe. Do you sense we're in the spring? The vaccinations are rolling out. Do you sense there's light at the end of the tunnel? There may be some normalcy. How do you expect campus life to be come this fall?
Well, it has been a challenge for all of us, and we've had all our students on campus. We've had our classes for the most part in person, so that's been good for our students to really be here and have somewhat like a normal college year. But it has been challenging because you're always battling that virus, and young people like our students, they get it, but they don't get very sick, and they've gotten through it. But it has been a challenge. But we made it. We made it. That's the victory, and so we feel good about that. It's so encouraging to have the vaccines rolling out. I just congratulate the leaders in our state who made this possible. We have a big blitz coming up in a week. We'll vaccinate 12,000 people from the local community here on campus. So that's great. And light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, good. Well, I wanted to ask you about that because we're going to talk a little bit later about your outreach, Notre Dame's outreach in the region and around the state and the impact it's having on the state's economy. But I think this mass vaccination site that you touched on, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was another one. But 12,000 people, all 12,000 slots have been taken for the one-shot J&J vaccine. Another example, I'm guessing, of your outreach, Notre Dame's outreach to help make things happen.
Well, it's Notre Dame wants to be a part of this community and this state. We've had just such a great relationship with our local community leaders, as well as the state leaders and the local community. We will only beat this thing if we're together and if we're working together. And that's Notre Dame is so proud to work shoulder to shoulder with local leaders and the community and state leaders and national leaders to get people vaccinated and get us back to normal.
As you look over the course of the past year, so many decisions that college and university presidents have been faced with that impact students, faculty, families, student athletes, a long list of folks impacted by this. As you think back on the past year, what has the experience been like from a leadership standpoint? How has the pandemic really tested your leadership abilities?
Well, the thing about the pandemic is you sort of can't rely on the normalcy. You can't rely on the routines that exist. So it seemed like every day, every week, or even every day, there were important, significant, difficult decisions that had to be thought through and made. And that's a strain. And it also is a strain for our staff. I mean, and I can't say enough about the people who work here. They just went above and beyond to make this thing work. And we asked them to change from their normal job to COVID response and testing, and they didn't miss a beat. And they just stepped up. And for all the difficulty, it's great to be part of a team that's so dedicated. And that's been the most rewarding thing about it, to be part of a team that's just so dedicated to make this happen and to make it safe and to make our life as normal as possible.
Notre Dame, of course, is an elite academic institution. It's also elite in many other respects, including athletics, and certainly a lot of attention on the football program each and every year. And the implications there for football, there was a lot of questions in all universities about, hey, is there going to be a football season? The Big Ten initially said, no, we're not going to do it. Obviously changed course later. As you think back on those discussions, and the football season did happen, Notre Dame, a member of the ACC for that season, and made it to the college football playoff scenario. But as you think back on those discussions, and there's so much economic impact too that football brings to the South Bend area, what were those discussions like? Were there unique dynamics when it came to football and deciding whether a go or no go?
It was a difficult decision, difficult set of discussions to be had. This is one of those decisions that had to be made. But we felt that again, younger people aren't as much at risk. We felt we could do it safely. We just felt it's important for the well-being of these young people, the student athletes, to be active, to play their sport, and for our other students to attend and to have the excitement of a game. And so we felt we could do it. We knew it'd be hard, but our kids, by and large, did a great job of dealing with all the precautions and all the protocols and getting through the season pretty darn well. And again, it's one of those things that was tough. It wasn't ideal, but that's part of the education, isn't it? I mean, in life, you have to deal with situations that aren't perfect, and you have to make the most of them. If there are students learned anything, if we learned anything from this, I hope it's that. I hope how to make it work by collaborating with others in a difficult situation. That can be applied to so many different areas.
Yeah. As you think about the impact post-pandemic that the pandemic in this past year will have on the delivery of education, do you anticipate that the way education is delivered will be altered or changed going forward?
It's a question we ask ourselves a lot. I think two things. I think one thing we have, just as we have in other parts of society, is technology has become a tool. It's become a tool for connecting as we're connecting now that, maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, we wouldn't have had. So that's important, and it's a valuable tool. At the same time, I think what the pandemic has taught us is being together in a community is just valuable. I think people have yearned for that. Zoom can only go so far to connect you, and you need to be part. And I see in our students a desire to be here, and they are clear that in-person class is so much superior to a Zoom class, and so it's not better than nothing, a Zoom class, but it's not as good as being there. So in a sense, in an odd sense, I think technology will be valuable going forward. But we're also reminded of the importance of being together in a community, in a learning community.
Yeah. It's been said there's much more to John Jenkins than your white priest collar. You have an interesting story, your path to Notre Dame. You're a Midwesterner, grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, third eldest of 12 children. What was growing up in the Jenkins household like in Omaha, Nebraska? I can imagine there was a bit of chaos from time to time.
A lot of chaos, but it was a lot of fun. And, you sort of learn to work with people and play with people, and had some heroic parents who did such a great job and just sacrificed themselves. But I remember my childhood is just a fun time.
What do you remember most about any interesting stories or times of your childhood you really remember most?
I remember I lived on a block. We had 12 kids, but other families had large families. And I just remember the games we were able to play. Just, scores of kids around, whether it was kick the can or basketball or whatever we were playing. And what a treat it was. I mean, we could just entertain ourselves for hours. So that I remember. I remember the big tables and the long conversations and people talking to one another, sometimes talking over one another. But it was always it was fun. There was always engagement. You were always dealing with people, and so it was I remember it as a lot of fun, a lot of chaotic and a lot of work, but it was fun.
How did growing up in that large family, do you think, impact you? You were one of the oldest of the kids. Maybe you had to shoulder a bit more of the workload, the responsibilities for your brothers and sisters. Did that environment shape you in the man you are today?
It did. I think, in any leadership role, in this one or really anything, you're dealing with people. You have all of the other issues, but the main thing is you're dealing with different personalities, different people, and you're trying to come together and work together. That was a daily lesson. That big family was a daily lesson in doing that, because your folks they couldn't spend time. They couldn't manage everything, so the kids had to kind of manage it, and that was a great lesson in how you deal with people and the challenges there, but the rewards and how you work together and how you overcome obstacles. So in an odd way, Jerry, is a great question, because of all the things I've done that's helped me to serve in this role as president of this large and great institution. It's dealing with a lot of people when I was young and kind of working through the problems.
That's a great answer. You come from a large and accomplished family. Your dad, a retired gastroenterologist, mom, a nursing degree, brother who's a physician. Your younger sister, Ann, I understand, is married to the well-known travel writer Rick Steves. Is that right?
She a former marriage. They're split now, but Rick was, it's great to have him and as part of the family. So it's quite a collection of people.
What I read where one of the great things you said your parents taught you or allowed you to do, and all of your brothers and sisters to do, was do what you wanted to do, was pursue, the path that you wanted to go on. How did that play out for you?
Oh, they were great at that. I never felt any pressure to do this or do that. You're kind of, but great support and to choose your path. And so that was, there was freedom there, and there was a sense of autonomy, but you never felt like you're on your own. You felt they were going to support you no matter what you did. And I think that was one of the best things I could have had, just that freedom. Look, I'm on my own. I got to work this out. But at the same time, I know these people love me and they're going to support me whatever I do. There's no better preparation than that.
Yeah, I got to ask you about some of your jobs. So back in Omaha, I read where you had jobs, I think maybe a Christmas break, working in the stockyards. Is that right?
I did. I worked at a meatpacking plant, and oddly, it was dirty work. It was stinky work, frankly, and it was hard work. But it was a great work, because you dealt with such an array of people. I mean, it's all classes, all backgrounds, and my dad sort of had this idea that we should get summer jobs. But I think it was such a brilliant idea, because you're just forced to deal with just an array of people, and what could be a better education than that? And just understand people's backgrounds and where they're coming from. It was great.
Yeah, for sure. And the value of hard work, to be sure. When it came time to college, you selected Notre Dame. I think you had an older brother, maybe, who went to Notre Dame. But your dad, I think some others stayed home, went to Creighton. What tilted you toward Notre Dame?
Well, I think it was a desire to you strike out on my own. Notre Dame is such a great place, and it attracted me there, a respected institution. But it was also, it was even more when I got here. It shaped me deeply. But just that sense of being on my own and striking out on my own, I think that was a good decision. And I'm very fortunate to have attended Notre Dame.
You had that history in medicine in the family, but you chose not medicine, but philosophy, bachelor's and master's degree from Notre Dame. And you talk about a defining moment while you were at Notre Dame, perhaps in your philosophy studies, a defining moment that really directed you toward the priesthood.
Well, yeah, that's. I think there were many things. I think it was. There's a sort of sense of faith and kind of the presence of God on this campus, but there's also a very serious intellectual life, and it was. I was able. It gave me the space to kind of work through my own thoughts and understand that the wealth of the tradition that comes to us, the Christian tradition, and appreciate it in a profound way. I think all those things contributed. And, for me, I think it was a call to do something that had a purpose beyond myself. I think of all the things I've done in life, the most gratifying are those in which you do something, you expend yourself for a larger, meaningful purpose. And that's what this life has given me. And it's great. It's the greatest gift.
Yeah. When you became president in 2005, you talked about being very intentional and focusing on uniting and integrating academic excellence and religious faith. So fast forward 16 years, have you been successful at that?
It's an unending challenge as questions come up and you grapple. But I think Notre Dame can be a place where that conversation goes on in a vibrant way. The highest intellectual standards combined with faith that really help us to kind of think deeply about those questions. There are many great institutions in this academic institutions in this country, great institutions, but that can be a place where Notre Dame can make a really special contribution. And I'm proud of what we've done. I am very proud. It's never perfect, but I'm proud of what we've accomplished.
As you look, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of debate, discussion about faith. And are young people, do you sense young people are drifting away from faith? Or do you get that sense? What's your perspective?
Great question. Two points. I think young people are drifting away from institutions. I mean, I think they're suspicious of institutions, religious institutions. I think they've seen, a lot of antagonism, some violence that emerged from faith, and that kind of makes them stand back. At the same time, there's a deep spiritual yearning I find in young people. There's just a sense of looking for meaning, of looking for a transcendent God in their lives and play a role. So it's this sort of institutional distance, but yet this spiritual yearning that's both define this current generation.
All right, Father Jenkins, we do a thing we call the 2-minute drill in each of our podcasts, where we ask some quick questions to get to know our guest a little better. And if you're up to the task, we'll start the clock and we'll ask you a few quick questions.
That's great.
Okay. Favorite musical artist?
Oh, that's a tough one. What would I say about that? I would say this is a little highbrow, but Palestrina is this writer of religious music.
Very good, very good. Do you have a favorite movie?
Babette's Feast is a beautiful movie about people coming together.
Good. How about a favorite sports movie?
Oh, it's got to be Rudy.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was a ringer. Do you have a favorite snack?
Oh gosh, this isn't very healthy, but chocolate chip cookies. How's that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Person other than a family member, person who has most influenced you.
I would say Father Hesburgh, probably. He's been a big influence, just as personally, but also as a role model.
Yeah. Is there one thing you do, your go-to thing to relax?
Oh, I like to just be alone. I like to read. I'm into audiobooks now. I like to take a walk. That's all those things are very relaxing.
Yeah. Okay. Final question for you on the 2-minute drill, Father. 3 people, either living or deceased, who you would most like to have dinner with.
I would say, again, reflects my choice in life, but St. Peter, because he was there for Jesus and the kind of just his perceptions of Jesus' life, death, resurrection. That would be a great one. I'd say, I'm a big fan of this this Saint Teresa of Avila, who's kind of deeply funny, but also prayerful person and a very accomplished person at a certain time in history. And I think she'd be a fascinating person to sit down and speak with. And, Abraham Lincoln, I just find him such a fascinating character at so many levels at such a critical time. A flawed leader, but one who rose to the occasion.
You have successfully completed the 2-minute drill, Father, and we'll move on now. The campus, Notre Dame's engagement in community and the state have changed dramatically under your leadership. And I think really the South Bend region and the state are benefiting. We'll dive into that and a lot more when we return to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. Our guest this week, Father John Jenkins, 17th president at the University of Notre Dame. And Father, thanks again for joining us on the podcast. Under your leadership, Notre Dame has really had a big focus, I think kind of a sea change, if you will, influencing community in a big way. You look locally there, the Eddy Street Commons, Innovation Park, Ignition Park, the neighborhood around Notre Dame have really been transformed under your leadership, a very different scenario than existed, I think, before. Talk about that, why you feel that's important, and why those things have really taken place.
Let me say thank you for that question. A few things. My predecessor, Father Malloy, was great at reaching out to the community, to the local neighborhood, and building relationships. So I built on that legacy. When one of the things that universities have become, and this is a change for maybe when I was an undergraduate, they basically taught students and wrote some books, and that was great. But they've really become engines for economic development, because their faculty make discoveries that have application in the marketplace. And so part of it is how do you bring those discoveries to the marketplace? So that's another component. But the other component is we are the largest employer in this region. And it's, we need to be partners with the local community. And part of that is, helping to build neighborhoods or addressing problems. But part of it is to work with the local community to be an economic driver, to build businesses, to get economic vitality so people can have good jobs and new jobs. And, it's, that the economy is always evolving, South Bend was built on Studebaker,
right,
making cars. Studebaker's gone and it's not coming back, but we need to find the next industry. And that requires, intellectual capital, and it requires entrepreneurial spirit. We can do that with the local community to build opportunities for people in this community. We benefit because, we have a stronger community. The community benefits. And that's really our greatest hope, that we can do that together.
That's great perspective that not all leaders ascribe to. I wish more would, frankly. But as you look at that, what do you see as the potential when an elite world-class university like a Notre Dame begins collaborating with places like Purdue and IU and some of the entities around the state of Indiana? What can come from that?
Well, so much. One of the things that we've been talking about with our educational partners as well as business leaders is this new science, this big data, where companies need to kind of mine the data to make products and make them more available for medical purposes, medical research purposes, et cetera, et cetera. You can only do that if you have the infrastructure, that is required and the expertise that is required. Universities can bring that to the table. Now, businesses have to show us how to make a viable business out of that. But universities can be part of that. That really, you look at the places that have really had economic booms, whether it's Boston, whether it's Northern California, the San Francisco area, or any place. It's that collaboration of business interests, university interests, the local economy to really create something that's new and vibrant.
And again, it can have real impact on lives. I know the university was a big driver in what was the Regional Cities Initiative, which got funding to communities at regions, I should say, around the state to really drive economic development. I sense this is a lot more than lip service. This is really getting involved and getting engaged and trying to make a difference in these communities, again, whether it's the South Bend region or areas around the state.
Well, absolutely, and it helps us because we have to bring talented people to a community. And South Bend is a smaller city; it's not like Chicago or New York. But there has to be kind of opportunities for people and a dynamism, and so we benefit if this happens, and the community, of course, benefits. So everybody wins, but it only happens if people come together and work together.
The campus has undergone a dramatic transformation as well. Lots of major building projects, among them, and one of certainly the most high-profile projects, the Capitol Crossroads, the stadium renovation, which included a lot more. Obviously, talk about maybe that project, why it was important, why it is important, and some of these other projects in shaping the university.
One of the things we've been conscious about as a great asset of the university is its beautiful campus, and it's a walkable campus. There aren't streets going through it. It's green, but the issue is when you build new buildings, you have to find some place for them. And when we built the stadium in the 1930s, it was at the edge of campus. Now it's in the center of campus.
Right.
So it's a historic campus, a historic stadium. We couldn't tear it down, but it's just sitting there, used only but a handful of days in a year. So the idea was to build around it, build buildings that we need, a student center, psychology, anthropology departments, media center, to build it around the stadium. So that was the idea of creating that place where obviously you have football games on Saturday in the fall, but you have all that space you use year round, and it's been a great thing. I credit colleagues who came up with that idea. It's been a brilliant idea and helped us be a better campus.
Well, you talk about that transformation. Football, obviously, in the fall, but it's become, as you say, a year-round venture. Concerts, the NHL, right? You've had hockey there, soccer. It is really, and that's having an impact, obviously, on Notre Dame, but big impact on the South Bend region too.
It is. It really helps us, but it helps the region bring people here. We have some great concerts planned. The pandemic got in the way, but we'll get back into that.
That's good. That's good. As you look, Father, toward the future and goals you have, continued goals you have for the university, what would they be? Both the university and perhaps that outreach around the state of Indiana and making a difference in the economy and economic development here in Indiana.
I think, first of all, to continue to build on the really excellent relationships we've had. I mean, the whole vaccination effort, that has been really just such a collaborative effort, and Notre Dame's proud to be part of that, and we'll continue to build on that. But I think this economy of the future is going to be knowledge based to a large extent, and it's going to be creativity based, and universities like Notre Dame can be a part of that. We have to work with local governments, business leaders to find opportunities and to enhance our strengths. That's going to continue. So we'll keep working on that. I hope what Notre Dame can bring to conversations on the economy, on technology, a kind of seriousness of thought on the human impact and the values involved. We're not perfect, but we have to think about how technological economic developments impacts the lives of people in the community and how it can serve humanity. And we can't ignore those conversations. It can't just be about the bottom line. It's got to be about, how it serves humanity, and also, how it creates a better society.
Father John Jenkins, the president of the University of Notre Dame. Father Jenkins, it's been a real treat to have you on the podcast this week. Thank you for your leadership, not only at the university, but again for the state of Indiana, because that outreach that you mentioned and that connection with community, be it there in South Bend or around the state, is making a difference and is important for the state. So thank you very much.
Enjoyed it tremendously, Jerry. Thank you.
Okay. Father John Jenkins, University of Notre Dame president, thank you as well for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast. For more information on the podcast and to listen to previous episodes. Also for business news 24/7, just go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. We'll see you next time.